Hello and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. During the fall, we like to do a lot of soil sampling on our farm, and one of the most important things we look at on the soil test is called base saturation. Now, if you don't know what that is, we're going to talk about that today and why it's so important for your farm.
Well, while you're all busy out in the field, Brian, I'm busy planting because we've got to get seed ordered early this year. Seed supply is going to be tight again. We'll have plenty of seed, that's for sure, but some of the new numbers, well, production was kind of tough in this drought year, so we want to make sure we get our stuff ordered early so we get what we want.
I thought you said you were busy planting there, and instead you said busy planning. Well, I'm busy planning on how to control our weed of the week because it's one of the toughest ones for winter wheat farmers. We're going to discuss how to control that later in the show, but first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk about what we do with this little square.
Well, it used to be really fun, but Brian doesn't like it when I beat him up like that anymore. So we've got to just use the square for something out in the field, I guess.
What we do is we throw this thing down and then we see how many seeds are in this 1 foot square. And that determines harvest loss for us. This is one of the most important things that farmers have to know. So we wanted to discuss this during our Farm Basics time because if you're not a farmer, we want you to understand that, you know, it's not just as simple as running the combine out there and all the grain ends up in the combine tank and it all goes to market. There's a lot of seed that can end up on the ground, and we want to talk a little about how to determine when it's a real big concern and how to prevent that loss.
Well, coming out of 2012, it's the right time to talk about this, Brian, because last fall we had more corn not make it into the grain tank than I've ever seen in my whole life. The corn was dry at harvest time, the ears were breaking apart, and there were kernels flying everywhere as the combine was running through the field, and we had all kinds of harvest loss. Now, a lot of guys said, oh, you know, it doesn't look that bad, there aren't that many kernels out there, but it doesn't take that many kernels to add up to a bushel.
So the whole thing is, we were telling corn farmers the ideal moisture to harvest their corn is 18 to 20%. When that corn has a little moisture in it, then it stays on the ear a little bit better, it goes into the combine a little bit better. When it gets too dry, like 15% or less, it will, what we would call, shatter, and you'll have a lot of loss at the head of the combine, and the corn will just fall on the ground. And it only takes 2 corn seeds in this square and a farmer has a 1 bushel loss. So let's say in a lot of cases last year we were finding 50 corn seeds in a 1 foot square. That's 25 bushels per acre. If you multiply that times, let's call it $7 a bushel, wow, Darren, we got a lot of dollars on the ground.
You bet, we sure do. And the other thing is, you think about if there's a whole ear that happens to lay out there here and there, well, that ear may have lots and lots of kernels. It may have 30 or 40 rows of kernels by 12 to 16 kernels around. So you multiply those out and wow, there's some big time losses when you're dropping ears out in a field as well.
So here are the important numbers that a farmer has to know. It's 2 kernels of corn, 4 soybeans, or 16 kernels of wheat in a 1 foot square. Those are the numbers that would equal 1 bushel loss. And so it's really just as simple as throwing this down in a few spots of the field, counting the number of kernels there, averaging out over those different spots, and seeing what a farmer has for harvest loss.
Well, the other thing would be look at where that loss is coming from. Let's say you're running through the field with the combine, and behind the combine you say, wow, I've got 3 or 4 bushels of loss that are somehow ending up in my field. What do I need to adjust on that combine? Is it at the head that I'm losing it? Is it during separation? What's going on?
It could be even before the head. So that's why we would encourage farmers to stop the combine on a regular basis, go out in front of the combine where they haven't even harvested yet, and throw this down and see what they have for loss. Then right at that head, they want to just back the combine up, let's say 10, 15 feet, and throw it right down where the head was. And then also to check behind the combine. So then they can separate out where the actual loss is coming from.
Well, you know, part of the deal too, Brian, is that farmers are in such a hurry at harvest time because really where we farm, you never know when it's going to snow. It could snow any day. We're out trying to harvest our corn and we look at the weather forecast and wow, it's going to start getting cold. There's a chance of precipitation. That could be in the solid form that we may have to scoop, and we don't really want to have corn out in the field with snow hanging on it. We end up with a lot of problems that way. So farmers are in a hurry. And you know, it's easy to just let that combine keep rolling, but we're just encouraging people to get out do some checking, and take a look. And if you can't remember those numbers, there may be an easier way to figure out exactly what your harvest loss is.
We do have a harvest loss app for your iPhone or your iPad, and just go to the App Store and download that free app, and then just punch in whatever your average number is, and it'll automatically tell you how many bushels you have for loss out in your field.
Well, harvest loss is certainly a bad thing for farmers, but one other thing that can be troublesome is our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
Everything is better to the power of Nutrisphere N. Proven to shield against leaching, volatilization, and denitrification, Nutrisphere N Nitrogen Fertilizer Manager helps you maximize the efficiency of your nitrogen applications. In fact, research shows that in 184 corn trials, Nutrisphere N increases yields by an average of 13.2 bushels per acre. Do the math for yourself. Contact your local fertilizer dealer today and take your operation to the power of Nutrisphere N.
Harvest season will soon be over, but don't put away your equipment until you bring it into Titan Machinery, your Case IH dealer. Take advantage of our Uptime Maintenance program. Uptime is Titan's preventative maintenance service designed to eliminate costly downtime during the short working season. Our technicians average more than 10 years of experience and use a comprehensive checklist to find problems before they slow you down. Call Titan Machinery today to schedule your Uptime service so you can spend the winter worry-free. Titan Machinery and Case IH. Better solutions.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seeds so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
Why do more farmers choose Genuity VT Double Pro Rib Complete Corn Blend? For maximum yield protection. With 2 powerful ways to control above ground insects like corn earworm, corn borer, and fall armyworm. Plus convenient refuge in a bag with 95% traded seed and 5% refuge seed. That's simplicity. That's Genuity VT Double Pro Rib Complete Corn, the #1 choice of farmers.
You can't fill a barrel any fuller than its lowest stave, and your crops can't do any better than the nutrient that's in shortest supply. Your yield potential is only as good as the weakest nutrient in your fertilizer program. Give your crops more than just NPK. Prescription apply all the micronutrients your crop needs, each one customized for your crop's potential. MicroLink, linking yield to potential.
Last year, Darren, seed corn supply around the country was one of the worst that we've ever seen. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like 2012 in the fall is going to be a whole lot better.
Well, you know, here's the thing. You come off a year where you have seed corn supply that's tight. Well, the seed companies just basically cleaned out their warehouse. Everything they had, they sold, it went out in the field and it's gone. And I think that's a great thing because now, you know what? Any corn that maybe had been sitting around for a couple of years, it's out, it's gone. So now a lot of the stuff that's going to be there is newly raised seed supply. So from that standpoint, Brian, I don't think it's all bad.
But let's talk about why we had a seed corn supply last year. First of all, acreage went way up this year, and we knew this was coming for a while. Okay, so acreage went up, and the seed corn companies, let's face it, they're trying to keep their inventories low because all these new traits and new genetics are coming so fast. They don't want to have an excess of inventory, so I understand that part. But the problem is they didn't properly forecast, and then the next problem was they had all kinds of issues last fall because there was early frost and just some other challenging weather conditions that made seed corn production pretty bad. Now this year, the challenge is drought. And fortunately, most of the big seed corn companies have most of their production under irrigation, so that's great. But this year it was so hot and so dry that even irrigation couldn't keep up to the degree that it should. So we're very concerned about seed corn supply going into this next year. And add on top of that, we expect corn acreage to go up at least 5% in the US and certainly more in some areas. Like let's take North Dakota, for example. Okay, when you're already raising the earliest corn hybrids that you can raise, you know, 75, 80 day corn, there's not a tremendous supply. Well, in 2011, acreage in North Dakota for corn was 2 million acres. 2012, 3.5 million. 2013, we expect 5 million acres or more of corn in North Dakota. So that's an enormous jump, and there isn't going to be enough very early corn.
See, this is what I like farming with Brian, because, you know, it's always the end of the world. Oh, we aren't even going to have enough corn that we're going to be able to plant anything. You know, he's all excited about next year already.
Well, I am.
So we want to order as early as we possibly can, and that's really the defense that you have as a farmer.
Yep.
You know, order your seed really early. Try to get, you know, some of the new numbers. Obviously, a lot of dealers are going to say, you know, hey, you can't get 100% of your farm to these 3 numbers. We're going to have to use 5 or 6 numbers instead. That's fine. It's no big deal. But, you know, you think about it, what's going to be the best hybrid on your farm next year? Is it going to be the one that won your plot this year? Is it going to be the best hybrid from 2011? Who knows? You know, it may be the same one that won this year, and it may not. You know, a lot of times the one that was the hot hybrid this year is mediocre for you next year because the weather's going to be different.
That's right. In 2011 we had flooding. In 2012 we had drought. In 2013, I don't know what the weather's going to be. I'll just guarantee you it won't be the same as this year. So that's the whole challenge, and that's why we suggest you spread your risk. On our own farm, we won't plant a corn hybrid over 100 or 200 acres. And for 1,500 acres of corn, that means we're probably going to have 10 to 15 different corn varieties we're going to plant, and I'm fine with that. And we're also going to spread the maturity risk. We'll go from 90-day corn all the way up to 105-day corn, 15 days difference in maturity. We'll do that on our farm because, again, we're spreading the risk. And over the years, what our dad has always told us is you just don't want to make big mistakes on the farm. That's how you end up going broke. So I don't want to put the whole farm to one hybrid or even to 2 or 3 hybrids. I want to really spread that out and spread that risk. And sure, I'm going to end up with a dog or 2 in there, but I'm also going to end up with a few really good winners. But the bigger thing is, if you do everything else right on the farm, the variety difference is a lot less.
Well, I agree with that. There isn't as much of a difference in hybrids if you take away a lot of the stress factors like poor fertility or insect or weed or disease control, those kind of things. Then you really don't have to worry as much about getting the exact right hybrid. Then there's quite a few that are going to work for you. The problem, Brian, is what are these hybrids going to cost us this year? If we have trouble with production again in 2012, wow, tight seed supply means seed corn companies are probably going to raise prices.
Well, there's no probably to it. A lot of the seed corn pricing is already out. We've already ordered and paid for the seed that we're going to buy for 2013. Could we make a few changes to that? It's possible. In fact, I'm sure that we will, because the seed corn companies a lot of times have some switch outs. Well, this number didn't make it on germ or whatever the case is. I don't have a big problem with that, but I know that I've gotten most of my stuff locked in. The other suggestion that I would have for you is take the seed early. I remember last March and even last February when we were going around doing a lot of our winter workshops that we do in the wintertime, and I just would ask farmers, how many of you have actually taken all the seed that you need for your farm? And very few had. And that's why a lot of people ended up with a problem going into the spring, because they didn't take their seed corn early. And I know you want to let your seed corn dealer hold on to that for you as long as you can. You don't want to have to store it. But get it on your farm. When there is a tight seed corn supply, get the stuff on your farm. Once it's on your farm, you know you've got it. Just having it ordered and even having it paid for like we have already, I don't know 100% for sure I'm going to get it yet.
Well, and here's the thing. You know, you say, well, I don't know, you know, there's still risk here and risk there, or maybe I won't get it all planted. You can always return seed corn if you don't get it planted. All you have to do when you're taking that seed corn home is make sure you've got a nice spot where it can stay dry and out of the weather, and also you have to control rodents.
One other thing that we should mention, Darren, is this year's a little different than last year in that the seed corn companies knew already in June this year that seed corn supply wasn't quite going to be what they wanted because of the drought. So a lot of them already made plans in South America very early, and that's a great thing. The problem is getting that South American production up into the United States as quickly as we need it. Hopefully it all works out, but I would just plan on getting as much seed as you can, as early as you possibly can on your farm. And if there is some stuff coming from South America, that's going to be the last stuff you plant. And when it finally shows up, don't be afraid to turn it down if you're all of a sudden getting 105-day corn when you should be planting 95-day corn at that point. You'll just have to work that out with your seed dealer. And unfortunately, the seed dealer is just the middleman. He can't control control where that seed is coming from, when it's going to get here, you know, its movement through customs and all those kind of things. It's a real hassle, but at least we do have South American production that is coming to supplement what got produced this year in the United States.
Well, one last point, Brandon, just to kind of hit on this again. You know, there was one hybrid I remember for our farm that we were really excited about coming out of 2011. We said, man, we for sure have to have that. Of course, that was being produced in South America. And so we were waiting for that. And we had a number of our neighbors, you know, same hybrid, did great for them in 2011. They were all excited about this one. Well, guess what? It was the worst hybrid on our farm this year. It had horrible drought tolerance and it didn't work out at all. So don't get all hung up on one number. I know it's easy to do when you see one that's really hot. Don't worry so much about that. Spread your risk out this year, order your seed early, take advantage of those early discounts because seed prices are going up, and be prepared for a good year in 2013.
Now, the one thing we do want you to be hung up on when we talk about one number is if it is something specific with your soils or a disease, like Goss's wilt, for example. If we're going to plant some corn on our farm, we've had a history of Goss's wilt, we absolutely have to have Goss's wilt tolerance. If we don't have that, I'm not planting that hybrid in that situation. So if it's just yield that you're looking at, that's one thing, and I don't worry too much about that. A lot of the new numbers that are coming out are great and will probably beat whatever the top yielder was last year. But if it's disease tolerance or something else specific that you need for a defensive trait, that you have to have.
Well, one other thing, Brian, you have to be successful raising a crop is good weed control, especially if you have our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to control this tough weed later in the show.
Case IH set the standard for improving power and fuel economy with SCR technology, while others were still trying to decide what the standard was. Only efficient power from Case IH is proven in the field 10,000 times over. And you'll find it in all our high horsepower equipment, from tractors to combines to sprayers. The world of farming is changing. Will you be ready?
I'm ready.
To learn more about how you can be ready with a proven leader, visit caseih.com/efficientpower.
Back in 1966, Advanced Drainage Systems, Inc. was the first company to start manufacturing plastic agricultural drainage pipe in the United States. And today, ADS continues our leadership with superior pipe production and service capabilities. Our roots are firmly entrenched in the agriculture industry, and we're committed to helping farmers grow their business. With 54 manufacturing plants and 24 distribution yards throughout the world, you can count on ADS and our green striped pipe to be there when you need us. Advanced Drainage Systems, the green striped pipe you can count on.
For lower costs and higher production, see your Mandaco dealer. Ask about the best production-built land roller on the market. Mandaco, simple design for easy transport and easy use. 12 to 62 foot widths, heavy-duty 4x8 by 3/8 inch tube frame, and now available with a steerable wing wheel. Mandaco land rollers. Improved soil to seed contact, faster, more uniform germination, less moisture loss. Eliminate downtime due to rocks. See your Mandaco dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call 877-915-8790.
Hey everybody, I'm Steve Azar, singer, songwriter, and recording artist. My good friend Brad Swinson, owner of Swinson Investments and Commodities, has a great team that helps farmers and ranchers with farm estate plans.
Our goal is to help you avoid or minimize federal estate tax. We work with you, your attorney, banker, and advisors.
Preserve your wealth and pass the family farm down to the next generation. Call my good friends at Swinson Investments and Commodities.
For years, FarmLogic has been the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with your farming operations. Well, it just got better. Introducing FarmPad for your phone. You always have your phone with you, so entering records as they happen is as easy as a touch of a button. Chemical database, GPS, service records, and more. When you do it on the farm, save it on your phone and it's backed up forever. Call or visit farmlogic.com for a free trial and find out why FarmLogic is the best decision tool for the farm.
One of the things we talk about the most on Ag PhD is soils, because it's something that we don't think gets nearly enough press out there. Everybody focuses on NP and K, but let's talk about the other things that are going on in the soil. And one of the things that we always look at on a soil test is base saturation. It's a measurement of 5 different cations in the soil, and it's just the ratio of one to the other, and the number in the end is all going to add up to 100%. Specifically here with calcium, we want the calcium percentage to be 65 to 80%. We want the magnesium percentage to be 12 to 25%. Potassium should be 4 to 8%. Hydrogen should be less than 10%. 10% and sodium less than 1%. If the numbers are outside those bounds, then you've got to do something about it in your soil. And I realize that, you know, there are a lot of people out there that talk about this calcium to magnesium ratio and everything else. We don't worry too much about that. What we do worry about is getting that percentage at least close to right. And the thing is, let's say you're at 27% magnesium and we want you to be 25% or less. Is it dramatically hurting your yield? Probably not. But what we're trying to tell you is, if you're at 27%, or especially if you're at 30, 35, 40% magnesium, it is hurting your yield. It is affecting your soil. And there are different things that happen in your soil. So like with magnesium, if that percentage gets real high, we know that you've got a very tight soil, poorly drained, and it's usually very easily compacted. Those are all bad things when we're talking about having a great soil.
Well, Brian, a lot of people aren't quite as passionate about soil tests and getting the right nutrients into their plants as we are, but you look at out in a field and you say, you know, all right, my base saturation says I've got 3% potassium. How do you guys know that 4% is going to make that much difference?
Right, instead of that parts per million thing, and that's the whole deal. With a lot of labs, they'll tell you parts per million is important. We'll tell you, no, that's not the most important thing. It's this base saturation.
Well, and when we look at plant tissue analysis out in fields, this is really where you get the report card for the fertility in your field. You know, you look at, okay, my base saturation is a little bit low. Let's see what the plant is really pulling up. And our plant tissue analysis shows us if we've got less than 4% potassium on our base saturation, our plants are almost always short in potassium out in the field. Once we get up into that 4 to 8% range, we see happy plants, and our tissue analysis comes back that plants have plenty of potassium. It's not a yield limiting factor.
So what we're trying to say is we're able to prove the fact that we need these percentages by having good or bad plant tissue analysis. So do the best you can to get good soil samples, work with a good lab that's giving you a base saturation test. It doesn't cost that much money. It's really going to help you out when you're trying to get your soils adjusted. And it isn't a short-term fix a lot of times. It might take 5 or 10 years to get these numbers right, but once you do, you're going to have higher yields.
One other thing that leads to higher yields is good weed control. Our Weed of the Week is coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is brought to you by Mandaco.
For lower costs and higher production, Mandaco leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. See your Mandaco dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call 877-915-8790.
Our Weed of the Week is perhaps a winter wheat farmer's worst nightmare. It is Downy Brome.
Well, when we think about the brome species, a lot of the grass killers in wheat and cereals really don't touch them, Brian. They might ding them up a little bit or hold them back for just a little while, but they don't completely take them out.
Well, you know, I remember, this is quite a few years ago now, when I was dealing with some farmers who were raising winter wheat, and they were just complaining up and down about cheatgrass, and they were referring to Downy Brome. It's a winter annual, and that's why it's such a problem in winter crops like winter wheat. And there was just nothing much that they could do. But then Maverick came out, and then Olympus came out, and now we've got PowerFlex, and also we have products like Everest 2.0 and Prepare that have activity on Downy Brome too. So we've got several different options. We want to talk about what could be the right thing for you.
Well, the challenge, Brian, with all those products is they've got carryover. You know, when you look at Maverick, for example, if you use Maverick out on your wheat, you're stuck planting wheat for quite a while.
You are, but that's the very best thing in Downy Brome. So if you are in a continuous wheat or a wheat fallow situation, Maverick is probably the product of choice. Olympus is maybe just a little bit behind it, not too far in terms of weed control, but it's got less carryover, and I know that's the thing when Olympus came out. They said, well, we have less carryover than Maverick. Well, you know what? It still carries over. So unless you're in a continuous wheat or a wheat fallow situation, I still don't recommend Olympus either. Now, it might work in certain situations, especially low pH where it doesn't carry over quite as much, but I get worried about carryover with anything. So then PowerFlex came out a couple of years ago, and there's also Gold Sky that would contain PowerFlex that can be used in the spring. But anyway, PowerFlex has definitely less carryover, less residual than what Olympus and Maverick do. It's not quite as good a product as Maverick on cheatgrass, but it's pretty close.
All right, well, you know, if you're in a situation where you can rotate other crops into your rotation, wow, that's the way to go. You know, if you can rotate Roundup Ready soybeans in, Roundup just wipes this stuff out like
well, it does,
crazy.
But you might still have the seed in the ground. It comes up in the fall, you seed your winter wheat, what are you gonna do? So a lot of people now are turning to a complete pre-emerge like Prepare That's got the same active ingredient as Everest 2.0. We like putting some Prepare down because then you've saved your PowerFlex or your Maverick for later on in the fall. And if the cheatgrass doesn't happen to come up in the fall, like last year, a lot of it didn't come up in the fall, you can spray that in the spring. It's just we really want you to do as much as you can in the fall. You get a lot better control than if you try to stop this thing in the spring.
One last thing, Brian, is the toughest thing about Downy Brome is it comes in the driest areas of our country. And I realize you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money till you know you're going to have a halfway decent crop, and it's going to cost $10 to control this weed. But spend the $10, because if you don't, weed control is so critical. When you're dry, you already don't have enough moisture. You can't afford to have a weed like Downy Brome in your field.
Well, that's it for our Weed of the Week, but stay tuned. Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
The world of farming is changing. From the power and versatility of Steiger and Magnum tractors to the legendary reliability of axial flow combines, Case IH can help you be ready. To learn more, visit caseih.com/be ready.
We're getting a lot of questions this fall about, do I need wing tips on my deep ripper, or should I go back to straight tips? We'll talk about that in today's Iron Talk. With drier soils compared to wetter soils that we've had in previous falls, the conditions are so much different. We do want you to take a look at your points if you're doing some deep ripping. We're seeing as much fracture this year with a 2-inch point as we normally would with 7-inch winged points. So in that case, it depends on what kind of job you're trying to do out in your field. For us, we like the narrow points. We're just trying to slice through compaction and give a spot for our roots to go down. If you want to have everything black in your field, you may consider using the wing tips, but here's what we're seeing this year. I think we may have a seed bed that's going to be too soft out there for us to drive through. We're creating too much disturbance through this rock-hard soil with the winged points. In many cases, we're advising guys, go back to that narrow point, take the wings off for this fall, and you'll do just as much work as you normally have been doing with winged points in the wetter conditions. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
Speed, strength, and efficiency make Capello corn heads a head above the rest. Built with polymer components that exceed industry standards, Capello corn heads continue to push the boundaries for maximizing grain retention while using less energy. Visit CapelloUSA.com and learn more about Capello's state-of-the-art chopping technology that cuts cleaner, allowing your horsepower to remain where it belongs, with your combine, so you can harvest faster in all weather conditions. Add to that an amazing folding feature, and it's clear to see why Capello is a head above the rest.
Hey Brian, it's Farm Guy.
What brings you to our farm?
I watch Ag PhD every week and know that you guys do a lot of field testing.
We test a lot of products here, and when something works, we use it on our farm.
Oh, like agriculture liquid fertilizers. You guys started talking about ProGerminator and SureK on the show a few years ago.
But I was skeptical.
You're always skeptical.
Should Brian be skeptical of agro-liquid fertilizers? Find out at www.farmguytv.com.
For lower costs and higher production, Mandaco leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. Twister's ease of maintenance is forgiving in rocks and has contour conformity equaling 0 downtime. Our hydraulically adjusted coulter angles make residue management easier and less costly. Spring or fall, the Mandaco Twister vertical tillage unit is the new leader. See your Mandaco dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call 877-915-8790.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seed so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients, including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
Introducing the all-new Backsaver Swing Hopper Auger Mover. Backsavers have interchangeable parts which allows you easy access to move or swing your augers to fit your harvesting needs. Get yours today at Norwood Sales.
That's all the time we have for this week's show, but be sure to join us again next time for another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
Fertilizer is a term commonly used to describe plant food. Did you realize all growing plants require primary, secondary, and micronutrients in order to grow properly and produce food for humans? For more information, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.